How did you first get into football then, Andy?
I think my mum was a little bit annoyed with me and my brother. We lived in a place called Martin, just down the road, in Middlesbrough, and she took my brother to go football trials at Martin, and took me along because I was just annoying everybody at home. And he got into this team, and I was just kicking the ball about on the Martin field, and just got opportunities just through that. I think the inventing teams just because players wanted to play, because there wasn't that many opportunities for young people to go into teams and clubs at that time. So yeah, just went on the off chance, and yeah, I found something that I enjoyed. Found something that was half decent at, and then never really looked back. Really played for Martin all my junior life, apart from school and stuff. And later on in my life went to coach them as well. We'll coach young kids. So yeah, it's played a huge part in my junior life, Martin. Both living and.
How old were you when you started then? What was that age?
I think it was about 8.
Okay.
Yeah, so and really good club. It's got a good history in terms of players who've come through and been professional footballers. Stuart Downing, David Wheater. You know what I mean? So there's some good footballers who've gone on to have good careers.
Yeah, well, you've definitely done them proud.
Yeah.
Getting all the way through. So can you run us through your the clubs then after that? Who did you get signed by first contract?
Yeah, so I was 14 at Middlesbrough. I just came off a 2-week trial at Southampton. There's a big network here in the northeast in terms of a bloke called Jack Robson, because Alan Shearer had just gone down, Neil Maddison had just gone down, two northeast players, and we went down for a 2-week trial, stayed at their training ground, which was an army camp, and training was good. It was really enjoyable, and then when I came back down, they'd offered me a 2-year schoolboy contract from 14 to 16. So I was just coming back home to discuss with parents, mum and dad, about what I thought. And when I came back, Middlesbrough were at home waiting, ready, and offered me a contract at the same time. So now I had a decision to make. And Southampton was a lifetime away in terms of travel and away from family and having to make those kind of decisions. And I was a Middlesbrough fan. Bernie Slaven was my Middlesbrough hero at the time. And when Ron came to my house and offered me a 2-year contract, it was a no-brainer. If there was only one decision and a contract on the table, I'd have signed for Southampton, 100%. But when Middlesbrough came calling, it was too much of a good decision and good opportunity for me to play at Ayresome Park at the time, to play for Middlesbrough, to wear that red shirt every week. It
was an amazing feeling.
And do that. Yeah, I was a Middlesbrough fan. I'd watch them at Ayresome Park every week, and it was a thing that I didn't think it was an offer. I didn't think it was an option. I'd missed that boat in terms of 12 to 14, that people, my friends getting contracts and get offered these kind of deals and stuff, and I accepted. I didn't think I was in that kind of bracket at the time, but sometimes when some other teams come calling with offers, you seem to be an asset, or you seem to be a little bit more pressured to sign you. So they took a risk on me, and I'm glad they did, because it was a club that I really wanted to sign for.
Yeah, so talk us through your first goal for Middlesbrough. What was that feeling like? Obviously, you talked about signing for the club, so that would have been a special moment, but I bet the first goal you scored for Middlesbrough as well has to be up there with some of your favourite memories. So how did that come about? And
amazing. We played Sunderland at home, and I think it was at the Coca-Cola Cup at the time, and it was a local derby. I knew a lot of the Sunderland players anyway from living in the local area, socialising with them, etc., and being good friends with a couple of them. And ball came through from Emerson, put me through 1-on-1. I used my pace, which was quicker than anyone on that pitch on that night, and luckily enough ended up slipping it through the goalkeeper's legs. And just the noise for me, you know what I mean, to know that I'd done it for my team, and to do it in front of my family and friends was just one of those feelings that nobody can ever take away from you. I mean, everyone's got this opinion of footballers and an opinion of you as a person, that you're good, you're bad, you're not, you're this, you're that, whatever. But the fact that no one can ever take that moment away from me. And I knew after that game that I wanted more of it. That I wanted to hear that noise again. I wanted to get that feeling again. And those moments don't always happen the next week or the next month or the next year, the next season, because you're given an opportunity in a cup competition because the resting players, and I knew that. But I wanted to make sure that I was always in the manager's thoughts and always knocking on that door to get that opportunity. And next time I did, I wanted to make that happen. And didn't happen straight away, but managed to do it again in a couple of times. And but that feeling kept getting better. It was more-ish in terms of that I needed it, because especially at home, it was always nice to do it at home, because doing it in front of your peers, you're doing it in front of your family, your friends, and your colleagues, which is brilliant. But yeah, I always had a special feeling scoring at the Riverside. Never got to do it at Ayresome Park because I joined Middlesbrough in '96. The Riverside was open in '96, so it was like one of those not regrets because I couldn't do nothing about it, but I joined the first season at the Riverside, so it was new, it was history. We made history, but yeah, I think my dad had always dreamt of me playing at Ayresome Park and scoring at the Holgate, which would have been amazing because I'd watched that much football there over my junior life, but now to do it in front of that many people on a big stage in a local derby, which is just phenomenal.
Brazilian Emerson.
Yeah,
is that around the time of the FA Cup final?
Yeah. He was on another level. He was just, if he wasn't as laid back, he could have been, and if he was as committed and didn't go on holiday quite as much during the season, he would have been brilliant. But no, he on a football pitch, he could do things that I'd never seen. You know what I mean? On the stature of a man. You know what I mean? He was on another level. He was a monster. And do you know what I mean? I think if we could have just got a little bit more out of him in terms of consistency or commitment, we would have had an unbelievable footballer on our hands, because what we got from him was brilliant, but didn't work out long term in terms of what we needed from him.
Who else was around the first team when you were breaking in then?
Young players.
Yeah, no, like in the
players
squad,
wise. Juninho, Ravanelli, Mikkel Beck.
Was the full
hit. Mikkel helped me loads. Hamilton Ricard helped me loads.
Colombian Ricard.
Yeah, really good friend of mine. I've got some good stories about him. He was brilliant. Alan Boxes, brilliant again. You know what I mean? These kind of players, you know what I mean, were competing against me. You know, I'd go home and whinge to my dad that I'm never going to get a chance. You know what I mean? My dad's come back to me was just, but use them to learn from them. You know what I mean? These are players who played at the top level. These are players who've played all over the country. You know what I mean? Scored in Champions League finals, played in World Cups. You know what I mean? Gone for huge transfer fees. You know what I mean? Just learn from them. You know what I mean? Because they were so different to me. I mean, no player had what I had. I wasn't what they were. You know, so when I had those kind of conversations and probably calmed down a little bit and had the understanding that I could play alongside them. You know what I mean? Even the Brian Deans. You know what I mean? Brian, still speak to Brian now, and you know what I mean? He was probably one of my all-time favourite strike partners because he did things that I couldn't do. He was 6'8" or whatever, however tall he was, and he took the pressure off me, and I could do things that he could never do, and we seemed to get it on, you know what I mean, on the pitch, and we'd get on off it because we had that relationship, and it was just so nice that it took the pressure off me, because I couldn't see myself playing football in this generation. I couldn't play as a 9 because I'd hate it, because I'm not the kind of player to fight against a centre half, but playing with somebody was a dream because they'd do the things that I couldn't do in terms of holding the ball up, flicking the ball on, and I'd run in the areas that they couldn't. So it was brilliant for me.
What were your main strengths then, would you say?
My pace, my time and my runs, how probably clever I was in terms of winning free kicks, penalties, etc., and just playing the game, you know, and people might call it cheating and gamesmanship, but it's been clever.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because, you know what I mean, if you can nick in front of people and gain an advantage for your team in terms of what you need to do, it's a game. It's a game. End of the day, it's a game of football, and I think you've got to use your attributes in order to play at your strengths.
One of the other highlights was the goal against Manchester United in the fourth round of the FA Cup, scoring the second goal to seal the game. It was a star-studded Man United team, and obviously Middlesbrough had some great players. What are your memories on scoring that goal, and how good was it to put a pretty much the seal of the deal past Fabian Barthez in goals?
Well, that was my last ever goal for Middlesbrough, so at the time I didn't realise that was going to be my last ever goal. So obviously it stands in great regard now, you know what I mean, in terms of what that was. I never scored a header until for that. Yeah, I just hated heading the ball. It was one of those things that I just never got into. But when that ball came over, it was just, I couldn't really miss, you know what I mean? I think if it was a photo behind the goal, I definitely wasn't, my eyes wouldn't have been open. Headed it down, thankfully it went in the corner, and to see the tide that they had at the time, because they just won the lot the year before, so they were leaving that game and flying over to Brazil for the World Club Championship or whatever it was, so they had the best of the best that day, and Fergie wasn't happy after the game because Steve McClaren had done him over, and but we deserved it as well, you know. It wasn't just a lucky FA Cup win, we dominated the game in terms of, you talk about players who wanted it more. You know what I mean? And we had a side of workman-like players who just ran around, and you know, I mean, my goal came from closing the goalkeeper down to Barthez giving the ball away, and we broke 3-on-2, and then ended up Dean just crossed it in and I headed it in, and you know what I mean, moments like that, you know what I mean, and you try to instill that in young players now and say that, you know what I mean, like look what happens if you just pure hard graft, hard work, desire. You know, I mean, that can go a long way in football. You don't have to have the abilities of the Ryan Giggs, the Andy Coles, the Dwight Yorks, the David Beckhams, the Nicky Butts, the Paul Scholes. I mean, they were far better footballers than we were. But that day was just our day in terms of what we needed and what we got. And thankfully, I was able to play a huge part.
I think Laurent Blanc was still on the halfway line, wasn't he?
Well, he missed the header for the second goal. So thankfully that we it was nice to get one over on players who won the World Cup. You know, talk about fuller star-studded players. You know, but that day we outworked them, outfought them, and you get what you deserve sometimes.
There were some mavericks in the team, like Paul Merson and Paul Gascoigne.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories from the training ground of playing with them, or did you come into contact with them much? Or
yeah, we used to do everything together. We used to socialise together, which wasn't always a good thing. You know, we used to do a lot of things together in terms of end of season trips. You know, that we infamously went before. We went to Ireland for an end of season trip one year to play a game against Shelbourne, and it was all just publicity. It was all for opening Shelbourne's new stadium. I think they're 12,000 all-seater stadium, so everybody wanted to watch Gazza, and Gazza turned up. He didn't do the team talk. He was in the bar having a couple of pints before the game, and turned out the best player on the pitch. You know what I mean? Just walked through the game like he always does, and he was on another level. You know, he has his high publicity problems and issues, but on the football pitch, when he wanted to perform and when he could perform, there was no better footballer. You know, and if you could but role model for a young player, probably not. You know, that what you would see is antics off the pitch. But, you know, I think at the time there was a huge drinking culture. That wasn't him, that was everybody. And I think that got the whole of football together, and it created a good team spirit, especially for us. You know, at the time we were all young lads or young men. So living in the area, the socialising factor was huge, and it brought clubs together, players together.
You played on some big name managers as well at Borough. What were they like to play under?
Bryan Robson, you know, I don't call him Bryan Robson. Bryan Robson was always my gaffer, and the manager always gave me my debut. He rung my mum and dad to tell them about my full debut against Liverpool. So he rung them on the Friday. We played them on the Saturday, so he rung them, got them tickets for the game, sorted the travel out, which is just an unbelievable gesture from the man. You know what I mean? So that they were excited to come down and watch the game, and just to do that extra things. You know, he was brilliant. He rang my dad to offer me my first professional contract at 17 on my birthday. You know, and didn't negotiate with me. He negotiated with my dad and wouldn't speak to anybody else about it. And I think sometimes you forget how nice people can be. You know what I mean? For someone who's captained his country, who's captain Marvel, captain United, won everything impossible in football in terms of the Premier League. For somebody to do that, you then go extra for him, for that kind of person. And when he left the club, I was devastated. You know, it was something that I knew was on the writing was on the wall when Terry came in, Terry Venables, and to come and manage, coincide with him. Terry's ideas were brilliant, but you know someone's struggling a little bit when they need help and they get help, and it worked. They worked really well together, but Terry was only a short-term fix. Terry has his own aspirations to probably get back into the national team and do other things, so it was never going to be a long-term fix. And when the club decided that was it for the gaffer, that it wasn't nice, it was heartbreaking, and they went and brought Steve McClaren in. And the time that Bryan had left and Steve came in, I'd already made my mind up that I think my days were numbered a little bit, that I needed a fresh start. And Steve's first day, I handed a transfer request in. Probably not the most sensible thing to do on the manager's first day.
How's that work then? Is that literally a letter?
Just a letter, yeah. It was a letter in an envelope, just that I wanted a fresh start at a different football club, and I wanted.
It's more of an explanation of your situation.
Yeah, it wasn't written by me. It was written by my agent at the time, which was Mel Steen, which is Paul Gascoigne's agent as well. So it was done proper, professionally, but didn't really go down very well. Right. Probably left a bitter taste in his mouth, and didn't give me a good start in terms of his tenure. You know, that straight away that he probably wanted everyone on side, and I just thought my time was done at the club. And I wanted a fair start, but I just didn't think that I was going to get one.
You had a few loan spells then at Sheffield United, Bolton, and then arriving at Cardiff under Lenny Lawrence. When you did sign for Cardiff, first of all on loan, I think my memory serves me right, was kind of struggling around, not quite making the playoffs, and then you come in, you scored quite a lot of goals, boosted us up, and then we got into the playoff places and come up against Stoke then. What were your kind of, first of all, was there anything, because Sam Haman is notorious for putting dodgy stuff into contracts, was there anything like that in your contract? I think there was something about sheep in Graham Kavanagh's contract. So was there anything like odd in your contract, something like that? Or,
no. Well, I originally signed on loan, and my first game was Northampton away. Luckily enough, scored. We won the game 2-1. So it was brilliant to have that initial period on loan, because obviously Lenny was my manager at Middlesbrough. He signed when I was 14 at Middlesbrough, so me and Lenny had a history. We'd always got on, we'd always spoken. But he was director of football at the time, under Corky. So obviously Alan was the manager. I'd been speaking to Alan for 2 weeks. I was unsure about going, I'll be honest. And then we agreed on the Thursday before they were playing Wigan on the Saturday. And I'd agreed to go on the Sunday to sign. And I was going to go on loan for 3 months. I think Cardiff got beat 4-0 against Wigan, and Corky got the sack on the way home. Lenny rang me on the Sunday and just explained. We were on the phone for a good couple of hours and just explained that the club still wanted me. He didn't know who was going to be the manager. He's not sure if he wanted it or someone else was going to come in, but he can reassure me that I would be okay, and just to come enjoy my football and it will all work out. And luckily enough, he was good to his word. There was not many people that I probably would have trusted who would have said that. I did it for Lenny. Lenny took over. I didn't really look back. I had my first home game was against Blackpool, scored 2. It's easy then. Football's easy. Football's easy when you start that well. The fans bought into me. The most famous games when we went down to Boundary Park to play against Oldham, which was just
I was there that one.
Unbelievable. Yeah. I've never played in a game which I was starstruck, by the way. So we stayed on the Friday in Manchester. Andy Gorham was in our hotel, Andy was one of my heroes growing up. I wasn't a Rangers fan, but I was an Andy Gorham fan, a Paul Gascoigne fan, a Brian Ladbroke fan. I was a Rangers fan because they had the best players. So Andy was in our hotel, so I had a sit down, I had a drink with him, and he said he was making his debut tomorrow. So I was a little bit nervous in terms of I'm playing centre forward. Hopefully, I didn't know the team. He's going to play in goal. I've got no chance of scoring, and thankfully I scored 3 against him. And
yeah,
he didn't speak to me after the game, which is a little bit. No, I was a little bit disappointed. Obviously, got a pie thrown at me in the first half, just after my second goal, which is probably my fault. To be fair, I've celebrated where I shouldn't have celebrated. But
direct shot as well.
He got me right in the face. Yeah, it was a great shot.
What play was it? Any particular?
Steaking
it was hot. I had tomato sauce all over me top. So luckily enough, half-time whistle came straight away after that. So I had a chance to sort myself out and clean myself up, and then got my hat trick, and then Lenny brought me off straight away. I think it was 6 when I came off. But it was just one of those games that everything we hit went in.
Yeah,
it was just one of those games I've never been involved in ever. That the Cardiff fans were brilliant. I've never seen a team play so well in one 60-minute period than we did that day. It was just everything came together, and it just showed our potential in terms of what we could achieve if we all stuck together and we all wanted to achieve it, and we did for the rest of the season. And I think that we always referred back to that moment of if we play like we did against Oldham, we'll be okay. Remember Oldham, we'll be okay. Let's do Oldham, we'll be okay. And it was always that moment, and we did it.
I'm sure it was like 5-0 half time, if I remember rightly.
We did it all the way through, apart from the playoff semi-final, second leg. The only letdown was nerves, I think. You go back that moment, we went to, I don't know what Stokes Ground was called at the time. It wasn't a Bet365, it would have called something different anyway, but we went down there.
Britannia Stadium,
it was a Britannia, yeah. Went down there, I think we won 2-1.
2-1, Dean Gordon.
We played really well. There was loads of trouble, I remember. While the game was on, pitch invasion left, right and centre, because we dominated the game, and the games after the game I remember loads of trouble. And then the home game we were comfortable until the last minute. They scored a last minute equaliser, which was fine. We shocked us. We go again extra time, absolutely fine. But then they don't do the same thing again, last kick of the game, and it was just a disaster. For me, I hadn't set myself up at that moment. I'd came to get promoted. Yeah. I came knowing we were getting promoted. And no one had divine right to get promoted, and I'd built up the playoff final. I'd built up everything. Everything was built up for that moment. And after that game, got back in the car and didn't know what to do. Didn't have a clue what to do. So drove back to Middlesbrough. I didn't handle it very well. I was in a right mess. I was just not ready for what hit me that night and the whole club, what was going to happen. You know what I mean? Because nothing ever gets ready for those kind of moments in football. You know, everything's high. The highs are massive, but the lows. I've never been hit in football with that low ever. And it probably took me 3-4 weeks to get even close to thinking about what I needed to do, get myself in the right frame of mind for pre-season to go again. Pre-season was really good in terms of we had some good meetings, we had some amazing nights out to get together in terms of regrouping and going again, because I think that was so important to get together, because we kept the same group together. Yeah, I did a couple of quality players and had to go again.
Would you say this is the best, like those players you had around you, Gabardon, Ernie, Leg, Kavanagh, who would you say was probably the best player you played with at Cardiff?
Best player, Danny Gabardon, by a country mile, Rolls Royce. Yeah. You know, if he didn't have his injury, what he had for a good year and a half, I think he'd have flown earlier and got in the Premier League earlier before James did, because he was on another level. I think if it wasn't for Cav, we probably wouldn't have kept together. In terms of, he does so much to keep us glued together as a group. He was a leader, both on the pitch and off the pitch. He played a huge part in terms of what we needed to do. And then when he did eventually leave, we fell apart. You know, and that's not to say that we weren't together as a group, but I think some players have a huge impact and role to do. And we all had our jobs to do, and we all did our jobs. But I think sometimes you have a leader, and sometimes managers don't lead. Managers just do what they do. Players lead their own changing rooms, and he led it. And I think sometimes when you lose certain players, that it's difficult. And when he went to Wigan, quite high profile when he went to Wigan, that it's just, I think we all knew that we were just looking around thinking, like, what's left? And there wasn't much left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was disappointing to see that side, because from the time where Sam Mann come in and took over, you kind of wanted them to get to the Premier League, and it was just like, got close a couple of times but never quite could get there. So it was disappointing to see the crown jewels get sold off as a fan, you know. And
I think that was difficult for us as players, you know, that when I remember going to watch Gabs play for Italy against Del Piero, and he marked him out of the game, and then he comes into training the next day like he's just played against some pub team, you know what I mean? and that's just the stature of the man, of the player. And then when they leave, it's like, right, we'll bring a couple of new players in, right, we filled that gap, and not as good, but we filled it. Ernie leaves, Cavalier, it's just, how can you can't replace those kind of players and still want the same dream and ambition, because they're irreplaceable, those kind of players. And then you lose a couple of others, and new manager comes in. It's so hard, because managers aren't privy to those kind of decisions. It's a business decision sometimes getting rid of a high profile player like that, and Lenny was left with players that weren't good enough and ends up losing his job. It was unfortunate that didn't kind of stick through. But obviously, one of the highlights of your time at Cardiff City was the playoff run. 1-0 against Bristol. Peter Thorne scores the header. Yeah. And then the playoff final, QPR. Obviously, it was just so loud that day. I remember it being the Sea of Blue stadium. I think Earnshaw scored about 35 goals that season. He was on fire. So, first of all, what was it like being behind someone in such red-hot form, and then when the time comes, you go onto the pitch and getting your opportunity? What was it like, kind of, just, I would imagine it would be hard to kind of keep being in that mind to be to coming on, because they played with 3 at the front at the start of the season. You was involved in the side a lot. But then when you kind of was behind Ernie and coming on off the bench to help out in games and things, how did you manage to maintain your focus, like, from on the bench, and obviously when it comes to time taking your chance? I think it was a difficult one, because I started the season, we played Oldham away, first game of the season, we beat them 2-1, scored, Ernie was sub. And then we played Boston United in the League Cup on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, so the manager decided to rotate the whole team. Ernie scored 3 or 4 that day. And it's hard not to play somebody on the Saturday after you score 3 or 4. It's just nigh and impossible. So he pulled me and explained, and I accepted it, thinking that he won't do that again. But he did. He did it again, and he did it again, he did it again. And you know what? Sometimes you're just in awe of someone who's that good. And unfortunately for me, I was the one who took the hit, because he was playing that well. And and it was difficult. It was really hard in terms of trying to play second fiddle behind somebody, because the way that he was playing with Thorny one side, Leo the other, and somebody quick through the middle, that they had a philosophy and a way of playing. But the only position that the manager saw me to play was through the middle, and that was fine. But I was behind somebody who was always going to play. He was a Welsh hero. He was playing for the national team. He was scoring goals. So he was never not going to play. And that was a frustrating and the hardest thing to take. But I had to keep myself right, kept myself fit, played in the reserves if I could, or trying to keep myself right and do things like every day on training. Still trying to keep as positive as I could around the group. And then I picked up a silly injury just after Christmas. Groin injury. It was getting no better. I ended up needing surgery. I could have dragged it out till the end of the summer if I could, but it was just, I had a decision to make. I looked at the league, looked at where we were, and thought, right, well, if I have an operation now, I can be back for the last game of the season, and I can attack the playoffs. So I decided to go down that route. Took a big risk, because there's a chance we didn't make the playoffs because we were in so bad form as well. I remember we were in a rut. I think we got beat at home by Notts County. We were getting beat by Port Vale. We luckily got in the playoffs right at the end. I came back. I missed the last game of the season because my groin just wasn't great. I ended up being on the bench for the Bristol City's both games. They were both of the most horrific games of football I've ever sat through in my life, even though I didn't play a big part because I wasn't fit, but the manager wanted me part of it just in case he needed me. The home game, Thorny's header was brilliant, but didn't really do much else. You know what I mean? That both cancelled each other out. Two teams who knew too much about each other. Down there was the atmosphere was awful. It was the real bad atmosphere about the whole game. It was just erupting, ready to happen, and luckily enough we seen it through. We had a good night after that game, celebrated together, and we had a bit of a long break between that game and the playoff final. I don't know why they missed a week, and we played, I think, 14-15 days after. And that gave me a long period to get fit. You know what I mean? I remember we played on the Sunday, and I had a fitness test on the Thursday. I had to pass the fitness test on the Thursday to be able to be fit. Your manager had a big decision to make in terms of personnel, because he had to let out a couple of players who would have been devastated not to play at the Millennium Stadium, and trained on the Thursday absolutely fine. Agreed that I was fit, thankfully, and I felt great. I don't know how I felt great, but I did. The morning of the game was nice. There was something nice about it. Nice feel about what was happening. Stayed at the Celtic on the Saturday. Whoever played there won. So they came back celebrating, which was nice that we saw that and thought, fancy a bit of that. Obviously, it happened to us, and Wolves stayed there on the Sunday as well. So the three teams who stayed there won, which is nice. But now the game was just tetchy. It was just, we played them 3 weeks before. We Loftus Road beat them 4-0. Ernie scored a hat trick. I came on a sub and scored. And Clark Carlisle and Danny Shittu just marked him out the game. He just couldn't get no joy. I don't know. They had the game of their lives. He just needed something different. And he told me to warm up. Lenny, and brought me on with about half an hour to go, and I remember standing there just as he put Ernie's name up, and there's a few choice noises from supporters, and I understood why, because Ernie was that important to the football club, and for a manager to make that decision, I think if we'd have lost, I think Lenny would have lost his job because of that decision. I do believe that, and I think we've discussed it before and after that moment, but after the game we looked at the world beat of the decision he's made. But you know what I mean, that's managers have got to make really tough decisions and tough choices. You know what I mean, the goal was just, I'll never score a goal like it again in my life. If I could do that moment again, I don't think I will ever do it as perfect. You know what I mean? I think when I hit it, I knew it was in. I just, you know what I mean, I've spotted Chris Day numerous times after, and he hates me still. Which is absolute
wildy. When did you know you were going to hit it? Did you know straight away? Or
straight away, yeah, straight away.
And
I think where he was stood, it was. I didn't expect his hand to get as close as what it was. And when you watch it, it was inches to taking his glove. You know, I think it was in normal time. I think Danny Shittu wouldn't have switched off or give me as much time because he was tired. I know Clark Carlisle just giving the ball away, and it came back over. And you know what I mean, me and Clark discussed this on overtime as well, and you know what I mean, it's football, but that's a big moment. You know what I mean, big moment for Cardiff. To win in Cardiff for Cardiff was just, it doesn't get any better than that. My biggest regret when people ask me about playing at Wembley, never played at Wembley, always wanted to play at Wembley, being an Englishman. Would I swap what happened to play at Wembley? Absolutely not. You know what I mean, to do that in Cardiff for Cardiff was brilliant, because what happened after that moment for the next 3, 4, 5 days was just, just crazy. You know, it's just there wouldn't be an atmosphere like it around the area, around the city. That was just like fantastic.
Yeah, the ball over the top, Gareth Wally bounced twice and was
hitting home. By the way, he'll tell you he meant that.
Did he? No. Was there anything like? Because you can see, looking back at the video, it looks like you're just focusing, waiting for it to drop, and then you lift it over the keeper. Was there much going through your mind or at that time? Like, what does go through? We're talking about like world-class players. They deliver goods at crucial moments. That was like a crucial moment that you had to deliver. What actually goes through a player's mind when, that opportunity presents itself?
I had to score. I didn't want to take a penalty. That was I could not put myself, probably my family. I got through those kind of moments because I knew I just kept looking at the scoreboard, looking at the clock, and thinking we're running out of time here. You know what I mean? Something's got to give because I couldn't think of being that person in Cardiff for Cardiff to miss a penalty in the Millennium Stadium. That would have been for somebody, or for me, it would have been horrific. I remember scoring the goal and on the Sunday, and I remember going out Tuesday. I went out with my mum for some food, and somebody came over and said that moment will be etched in history, Cardiff's history forever. Mm-hmm. You don't think anything of that kind of comment for me. For me, it was just a comment. I think, oh, brilliant, thanks. I really appreciate the comment at the time. It was brilliant. But then thinking, but how many times he said that over the last 35, 40 years, but now that goal's remembered more nearly 25 years later than it was that night, and it's just unbelievable how those people remember that moment more than any other moment, because I think it meant more because of where it was, you know what I mean, because it was in Cardiff, and there was that, it just felt as though every single, when the goal went in, I didn't realise how many Cardiff fans were there. You know what I mean? Because it's supposed to be 50-50 halfway through. There's no way in the world that was 50-50. It was just no way, because it was a small section of QPR fans. It was just unbelievable, because it just was all blue anyway, because they were blue. It was just it was just a magical moment for me, and you know what I mean? I was just I think it was probably relief. I've watched the game since. I watched the game after the goal since. I didn't touch the ball after I scored. Just ran around. And I don't know why I didn't touch the ball. I was a real poor performance, and kept talking levels, but I just wanted to see the game out and just see it through. And when that final was, when you'll see the euphoria of how relieved everybody was. That everyone probably think that what happens in changing rooms and celebrations and things, that you probably couldn't be any further from the truth. That we were all in there. It was very subdued in terms of, I think we put that much in, that we were all just sat in the bath, drinking cans of lager and just not really celebrating and speaking to each other. It was more that, like, what's just happened, that I think it was only probably 3, 4, 5 days later that you think, wow, what have we achieved there as a group, individually? And then you go again. It's just relentless. You don't have time to sit down and enjoy it and reminisce, because Alan Lee goes and signs from Rotherham United for £1 million, so then you lose your place again straight away. It's somebody else, and it's just football is just relentless. It's just, and then you go on to another level because you go into the Championship, and it's really,
what was the difference in levels for you then between the two leagues? Was it a massive jump, or?
Not for me. I'd played in it anyway, but it was. I think with my attributes, I just needed to play. I needed that opportunity to platform my abilities at that level, and I didn't really get as many opportunities because Alan came in. We went down a different route in terms of playing style, and then obviously the manager lost his job, and obviously Dave Jones came in, who we didn't see eye to eye from day one, which is football, and one of those things.
Yeah. It is really a really important goal in Cardiff City's history, because they haven't dropped down to that level. I know they're in a bit of trouble this season, but it really did set the template for the next 25 years. Yeah. They've either been in the Championship or the Premier League. Yeah. So it was a really important goal for the trajectory of the club. You don't know what would have happened if we'd went to penalties and they would have lost. They might have been an exodus of players. You probably would have known more.
100%. I think obviously you don't know those kind of things, but I can't see that all the Welsh internationals would have stayed for another season, because once one leaves, everyone else leaves, and the players who came in wouldn't have came in. The club would have been in such a different position in terms of what we needed to achieve, and I think it would have been a different club. I think we would have seen different outcome over the next 25 years, 100%.
Well, it's definitely etching the City fans. We had a few fans today, friends, to say or got any questions you want us to ask Andy? And that's the first thing.
Everyone wanted to just know about
the goal.
So
right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's the first thing on the run sheet.
Yeah.
But yeah, great. And then you moved in after City. Was it Halifax?
No, I went over to Scotland for
Dunfermline.
Yeah, I went to Dunfermline. Obviously, the manager had brought in a lot of Scottish players, and I think he brought in Fletcher from Rangers, and same thing again. When your days are numbered, your days are numbered. So you've got to go and try and find another area to go and explore. Moved over to Dunfermline to play in the Scottish Premier League, which a great experience. Played against Celtic Rangers, played in the cup final. The last game for Dunfermline was in the cup final against Celtic at Hampden Park. So good time, really good place to live in Edinburgh. So good part of my life, you know. It's good experience. I think as a footballer, I think it's important that you have different experiences. You know, I know a lot of local players in the area who, when they left Middlesbrough, they just left football because they didn't want to leave the area. They didn't want to have those experiences. Where for me, it was I left Middlesbrough to go to a different country, effectively, and to go and live in Wales, to go to Cardiff, and then I left Cardiff to jump through a country to go through another country. You know, so like for me, it was an experience, a life experience, but an experience which, yeah, it was a good one. Like football wise, it was at a different level. You know what I mean? When the SPL at the time, when they do the split, and then you're playing against the bottom half, because we weren't great, we were fighting relegation. But when you're playing the Celtic Rangers, the huge games, and you know what I mean, we played a cup final against Celtic with Roy Keane, Henrik Larsson, Sean Maloney, Neil Lennon. You know, those players are on another level. You know, you're never going to be successful, but it's good experiences that no one can ever take away from you.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few more moves, and Halifax, you seem to you had a good stint there. Over 50 appearances, scored quite a few goals there. What was your time like at Halifax? They're kind of they're currently in the national league. What was your time like there?
Good. I had at the time Chris Wilder was manager. Chris was a teammate of mine when I was on loan at Sheffield United. So me and Chris had a bit of history. So we had a couple of discussions and decided to go. Loved it. I had a really serious injury which ended up finishing my career there, which happens unfortunately in football. But my time with Chris, my time with the football club, we ended up avoiding relegation twice. Once on the last game of the season, which I scored 2 goals in that game, which, you know what I mean, you talk about those kind of moments, big players turning up for big moments. That was I was quite good at doing those kind of things. I didn't really I handle pressure really well in terms of those big moments where some young players, I think, or some players just don't like those kind of moments. I thrived on them. I think, you know what I mean, I liked the euphoria afterwards. I liked the, you know what I mean, I liked the buzz. I liked, you know what I mean, I could see the end goal, you know what I mean, and if it didn't work out that way, but I'd done what I needed to do, then you can't really affect it, you know what I mean. If that's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And yeah, successful time. The club went bust as well. The week after I'd picked up my serious injury, so unfortunately ended up going down the leagues and reinvent themselves. That's why they're not where they are now. But yeah, I had a really good time. Took a lot from Chris. Chris was a real good bloke. Still speak to him. So yeah, it was nice to see him as Middlesbrough manager for a short stint. But no, yeah, really nice fella and a genuinely nice human being to play football for.
Could you see in that time at Halifax the kind of level of manager you'd go on to become, because he took Sheffield United, who were kind of they got relegated into League One. They was sort of struggling a bit at a point for an identity. He built a team and got them to the Premier League, and they had a really good first season. Fell away in the second season syndrome. But could you see those origins there of him becoming a elite manager? Yeah,
100%. He was probably one of the best managers. The way that he could speak to individually that I came across, you know, how he handled himself. He was brilliant. He was probably also one of the toughest managers I'd come across in terms of when he gave out a bollocking, he gave out a bollocking. When he wanted to have a go at you and you knew about it, but I think he had total respect, and you had respect for him as well, you know, because I think he cared a lot. You know, it was his first role in management, so there you got to be successful in order to go where you needed to be. I think he went to Oxford and he went somewhere else, then he stepped up to Sheffield United, which he was always going to be successful, you know, and he's done really well. He's had a good managerial career, and I think if you speak to him, he'll always go back to those moments at Halifax where he learnt loads, you know, losing a playoff final, escaping relegation, you know what I mean, gaining promotion. He did so much in a short space of time, and I think it'll put him in good stead in order to be successful. He worked with some good players, some good young players who when you've got a nice person that you want to play for, you'll run through a brick wall for a manager like that. Because, and I think that's key. If you've got players who will all do that, then you can't fall off, because you're always going to get the effort, the commitment, the desire. And if you've got some good footballers as well, you're going to get the quality at the end of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have quite a tight regime lifestyle-wise throughout your career? Good diet, you know?
No.
No?
Nope. No.
Was it kind of that era where
I think
it wasn't really...
Yeah, listen, there was a big drinking culture. So never drank before a game. In terms of, but after a game, it was always socially,
Players
Sunday,
lounge.
socially, going out and drinking together, socialising together. And it was under Chrissy, actually. We'd had a really bad spell under at Halifax, and I think we played away to Aldershot one week, and we'd lost 7 away games on the belt. Chrissy took us to a pub on a Friday night, 'cause we stayed over, and told us we all had to have a drink, and if we refused, it was a 2-week fine. So we all had 2 pints. We weren't allowed anymore, but we all had to have 2 pints. I'd never drunk before a game, so you know what I mean. For someone who'd been highly tuned, and you know what I mean, two pints, didn't wake up the next morning great.
Yep.
You know what I mean. Warm up wasn't great. You know, I wasn't really looking forward to the game, if I'm perfectly honest. But we won 1-0, which is possibly the worst thing what could ever happen to a football club, because the next away game, you can imagine what happened. The same thing happened again, and unfortunately, we got beat quite heavily that day. And I think the manager held his hands up and said, "Listen, as a one-off, it worked because he got everyone together. But long term, it's not the answer. So we won't do that again." And it was just it took the pressure, because we were all awful. But I think, you know, when you're used to not doing something and to try and do it, you know, for the players who did do it, I don't know how they did it, because it was just, I was only 2 pints, but it had a huge impact on my performance. You know what I mean? Last 15 minutes, I was getting cramp, I was struggling, I was blowing out my backside, to be perfectly honest. And I just couldn't handle knowing that I'd have to do that every week. It was a struggle, real struggle.
I mean, going back to your Borough days, Palmerston, I mean, it's quite
notoriously said, admitted that
for
he'd done
that.
it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I don't know how they were able to hit the levels that they hit with what they were doing in their own social lives, because it was, we know how alcohol affects your body in terms of dehydrates you, you know what I mean, in terms of makes you make silly decisions, you know what I mean, and vision, except, you know what I mean, for whatever it gives you, you know what I mean, the negatives outweigh the positives. But imagine how good he would have been if he hadn't. You know what I mean, that's what you talk about.
Gazza.
You know, and I think, but then when you get used to doing something regularly, it becomes the norm, and you know what I mean. Just probably it's a shame that those kind of things were happening.
Going through some of your transfer moves and loan spells, did they all go smoothly, or did they ever come a cropper with agents or deadlines? There was a few things what didn't happen. I failed a medical at Crystal Palace before I signed for Cardiff, so I was due to sign for Crystal Palace. Steve Bruce, who seemed to stalk me throughout my career, to be fair. I went on loan at Sheffield United under Steve. Steve tried to sign me at Huddersfield, didn't happen. Bid got rejected. He went to Crystal Palace. The offer got accepted. Went there, had a medical, and Simon Jordan and Steve told me that I'd failed my medical, which was heartbreaking, because it was something that I wasn't expecting. I had something wrong with my ankle, needed an operation. But then things happen for a reason. So by the time I came back, I signed up for Cardiff on loan. So I was due to go to Aberdeen. That fell through. They couldn't agree with my agent. But I always believed that things didn't happen for a reason. You know, that at the time I wasn't really keen on a move for Aberdeen, but there was nothing else happening. So the Cardiff one went really smoothly. Moved there. All the other moves were absolutely fine. My agent was always quite open and transparent with me, that he said, "I'll deal with it. I don't want you involved." So it was always that, basically, drive up here, go there, do this, and just told me what I had to do. And he would just keep everything quite crystal clear for me, which I really enjoyed, because my job was to be a footballer. I hated talking money. I hated talking, because I always found it put pressure on myself. You know what I mean? Sitting down that I'd never met Simon Jordan. I'm a big Simon Jordan fan now, because I love his social media stuff, because I think he's very outspoken and I liked it on Talk Sport. But when I met him, it was quite awkward and uncomfortable, because I'm sat in a room like this talking about something. I'm like in third person, that 2 people are talking about me. And I felt uncomfortable. You just sat there, just didn't speak. About they're arguing about what the deal should look like and how it should be, and you know what I mean. I just felt like, am I worth that much? Should this right? Is it wrong? And I just wanted to settle there and just. Was he strongly opinionated back then as well? Was he?
Yeah, he was a businessman, isn't he? You know, I think he's probably more so, because it was his football club and it was his money. So I think he was trying to get the best deal for the football club. But when you've got somebody like at the time,
Mel Stein, who was very opinionated and very strong. You know what I mean? When you put two big, strong characters together in a Mark Curtis who worked there as well, you know what I mean? These agents are ruthless, you know what I mean? And when you hear these kind of conversations, and it makes deals and things, you can see why they fall apart, because when you walk out, you think that nothing's been agreed. Yeah. Is it not happening? Is it happening? And then phone calls happen and they rekindle and they start again, and it's a bit of a mess, you know what I mean? But I think now things are more calmer, done probably over email and stuff, so there's not sit down and do things, but they're more done strategically than they are probably face to face and heated that they were back in the day. But it made for good viewing.
Yeah.
So going back to the Palace medical to Cardiff, so Cardiff not bothered about your ankle? Are they doing the same medical?
Yeah, that's right. So I went to Crystal Palace, failed my medical, had my operation, failed the medical on the Friday, flew back to Middlesbrough on the Saturday, had my operation on the Monday.
Got it, okay.
Fit, had the medical when I went to Cardiff, and they were happy with the result that had been fixed. So
I assume they just
I had a floating bone, and it was I'd had it out, so there was still a little bit of residue which is left in, so I'd had a minor operation to get it right, and Cardiff were happy that my medical for Cardiff was so strict because the figures what were involved with my contract and the £1 million contract that Cardiff were paying for Middlesbrough was huge in terms of like all weekend. I thought there was something wrong with that one because I'd had a scan on I think it was the Tuesday, had another scan on the Wednesday, and I was thinking, oh no, that's not right, because the scan must have showed something. I'd have another one, and then having a heart scan, having another scan. Everything was going through my mind that if I failed this one, there's not much left in terms of I've got 2 years left at Middlesbrough. That they don't want me. I don't really want to be there. I've got no real option in terms of if you fail 2 medicals in 1 year, that it was going to touch you.
New spreads, I guess. Yeah,
of course, yeah, and I think I was so relieved that was clear. But I knew myself, I felt good. You know what I mean? But at Crystal Palace, I didn't feel great. There was something, because I was struggling after games, or struggling after training in certain aspects of my health. So I think you know yourself that when I felt good and when I didn't.
Just before we jump on, I want to go back. You said you had a Hamilton Rickard story. I just want to.
Oh, that story of Hamilton was brilliant. Yeah. So we finished. We finished the game on a Saturday, and I lived at home with parents. I was only, I think I was 18, and I was upstairs in a bad mood. We just lost, and my mum came upstairs and said, "Oh, you got a visitor downstairs." And I said, "I just don't want to see anybody." I thought it was one of my friends just messing about and coming round, but it was Hamilton Rickard sat in my front room with my mum and dad. So Hamilton came round to cheer me up, to go and take me out for a couple of drinks, as you do. We couldn't speak a word of English, so he sat with my dad downstairs. Yeah. So he drove me all the way to Tall Trees, had a night out, drove me all the way back. He just to help me and cheer me up, because I was really good to Hamilton when he came. All his interviews, I'd be there with him, teaching him words that he probably shouldn't have said in interviews, or doing and help him out in certain degrees, like around the area, because I was a local boy. So you know what I mean. So Hamilton was really, really, really like
a passionate,
genuine guy with me. So he helped me out.
Any other big characters? Any other big characters you play with?
Loads. Obviously the Gazzas, the Paul Mersons, Andy Townsend. We were inundated with all those kind of big men. You know what I mean? Big Nigel Pearson. That these like in stature. We all turned out to be either good pundits or good managers. You know what I mean? So these kind of people just ooze class, but expected even more. If they wanted you out for a team bonding session in a restaurant at 7 o'clock, you expected it to be at 6:30. It was like, and if you weren't, it was vicious. But you did what you needed to do to be a footballer. It was just part and parcel of being a player at the time for Middlesbrough.
Yep.
1 to 11 then, yeah.
1 to 11.
Yeah, we're going to touch England with your under 21 experience. If we ask, what was it like again? Called it for England under 21s, and can you talk us through your goals and your experience?
It was fantastic. I'd always been like quite a proud Englishman. But I think my debut for England was at Riverside, and I always thought that I'd done it a couple of times with the players that you get called up at the club to try and get a decent crowd in. So you think that I'm called up because I'm playing for Middlesbrough, and we put 20,000 on the gate, which is brilliant, and you think that's my only opportunity. But the second time I got called up, which was at a different club and at an away game, and it was like I think I've earned this one. You know what I mean? I think I'll earn them all in the end, but no, it was a real good experience to play at the Riverside for my debut. It was just brilliant because it meant so much for my family. You know what I mean? To get my shirt, to get my cap, but they all accumulated to play in the playoff final
in Spain against Yugoslavia to then go to the Euros. That game was just fantastic. The photo obviously is quite a famous photo, because obviously Lee Hendry's made it even more famous from what he's used it for. But Rio Ferdinand, John Terry, the names that you've Rio Ferdinand, Jamie Carragher, Frank Lampard, Lee Hendry, Kieran Dyer, Seth Johnson,
Carragher,
Richard Wright.
Richard Wright,
Unbelievable side we had that day. To score the first goal was brilliant. To start was great. To score was even better. To know that I'd played a part in some success, you know. Some of the England squad was there that came to watch. They flew over to watch it. Glenn Hoddle was there. So when they all came to the change room after we'd achieved what we needed to achieve, and they had Stankovic and some other real good footballers who played for Lazio and had a real good career. So they had a good side as well, you know what I mean? Because before they won, the war had hit their country. So before they'd all moved, and it was to play at Barcelona. You just went with it, you know. We didn't feel pressure. It was like that you'd earned that free hit at a bit of success, and went to Slovakia in the Euros, and didn't achieve what we should have achieved. We massively underachieved. We were thin on the ground in terms of, I think Glenn had took the better players off us for the World Cup, which was a brilliant opportunity for them. Left us thin on the ground and players that we hadn't worked with throughout the year to get our success. So we'd had a couple of lads who hadn't been with the group. We lost to Slovakia. We think we beat Turkey and lost to Italy. So it was a little bit of a dead rubber in terms of tournament, but experience-wise to go to live in Slovakia for a month, for a Euros tournament and live that life and be that kind of player, it was an experience that I'd never ever would want to take away from myself.
Great stuff. Could you name us your best ever 11 you played with?
Best 11. Mark Swarter would be a goalkeeper. Yeah, 100%. I think he had a real good career. He achieved more when he probably left Middlesbrough in terms of when he went to Chelsea. But when he came to Middlesbrough, he was just superb. Like a real stalwart in terms of his stature, how he handled himself and things, and that was brilliant. Really good. Really good.
What formation are you?
I'd probably go back four, old school.
4-4-2, yeah.
Back four, yeah. I'd go two centre halves. I would go Rio Ferdinand as my centre half. Other one, I'd go Nigel Pearson. I think Nigel was such a leader at Middlesbrough. I don't think he ever got the credit, you know what I mean, for every time we went up for a corner, went for a header, it would take him probably 30 minutes to get back because of his knees. But he would win every header. He would be on another level. I think those two would probably complement each other in terms of Rio's abilities and Nigel's leadership skills.
He had a good partnership with Vickers, didn't he? Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that time?
Yeah, him and Stevie Vickers, and then Stevie ended up coming out for Gianluca Festa because Gianluca came in, and they were just brilliant. Really strong. Left back, I'd go Christian Ziege. He was just on another level in terms of what I ever thought I'd see at the Riverside and play with in terms of player. And then when he left Middlesbrough to go to Liverpool, obviously left a little bit of a bitter taste in terms of Middlesbrough fans, but when Liverpool come calling, you don't give that up. You don't see those things through. Right back, I'd probably go Kieran Dyer. I know Kieran doesn't see himself as a right back, but he was just he was so versatile in terms of what he had and what he could do was just brilliant. And yeah, I think that back four would probably complement each other and do pretty well. I'd probably go three in the middle, three centre midfielders in the middle as a 10 with two centre forwards, just to try and cover all bases really. I'll go with my 10 before I go with the three in the middle. So my 10 would be Juninho, because I don't think there's a better player that I've played with in my career. I think, you know what I mean, I think he used to unlock doors. He would do certain things on a football pitch and training pitch that I would just be, how on earth have you done that? And for someone who was such a small guy,
free kicks as well.
Just everything. He had the lot. He had the lot. Yeah, he could win a game on his own. He could make something happen on his own, and he was just a phenomenon. You know, he was just really strong. 2
spells at the club as well, did he?
Yeah, his first one was brilliant. Then he came back on loan from Atletico Madrid after he broke his leg.
Yeah,
and I wish he hadn't.
He was a different player, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he was sub behind me. We shared position really. And I think every time I see him warmed up, it would always be in my head that I'm coming off. You know what I mean? Because Juninho's coming on, you hear fans singing his name, and it would always be, you know what I mean, quite disheartening for me. You know what I mean? And always be thinking, like, I wish he hadn't come back, because his first spell was such a success that people always say, don't go back. You know what I mean? And that always ruminating with me, really. Sometimes I don't ever go back, because that always was one example that if he hadn't, I think he would be remembered. But then the second time he came back, he won something. So, which you know what I mean. I think the club won something. So he had a bit of success. But I think his first time he was here was unbelievable. 3 centre midfielders: Stevie G, Paul Gascoigne. I'm going to throw Emerson in there as well, because I don't think you can have those two without Emerson. I think those two were just on another level. I think they complement each other. You know, they all had different abilities. Stevie's range of passing, the way that Gazza would just dribble through everybody, and Emerson's just a mountain as a man, as a player. Would just be unbelievable. And I think this day and age would probably complement each other in terms of a trio, as the way they play. 2 up top, Michael Owen, 1,000,000% would be the first name on my team sheet, because he'd score goals out of nothing. As a young kid at 14, 15, he would do it, and he'd still do it all the way through his career. Brilliant. And then my last one, I'm probably stuck in between two, Rav and Boksic. Boksic was probably a better footballer, but Rav's goals, return, everything what he brought to Middlesbrough was just unbelievable. So I'd probably say Ravanelli, because of the things he won. His debut alone at Middlesbrough when he scored 3 against Liverpool, just like he set his stall out with in regards to what he needed to do. And all the successes that Middlesbrough had that year, with 2 cup finals at Wembley and a relegation, made it even more special how good he was. And if we hadn't have been down there, how more successful would he have been? Yeah. Because we just scored more goals, winning more games, and it was such a shame that the club went down, because the writing was on the wall that he would leave. He would have to leave because of he can't play in the Championship, because it was probably just unfair.
Bounce straight back though, probably.
Yeah, we did bounce straight back, but then we brought other players in, Paul Merson, etc. You know, I mean, that's how Mercer's got to be a sub, and I'll sit next to Paul.
That is a top class side, that, isn't it? You shared the pitch with some players there. It's got to be said.
And the manager.
Oh yeah,
Bryan Robson.
Bryan Robson.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. And out of those players, how many are world class, would you say?
You say Rio was earlier? No, I don't think he did you? No.
Well, how many of those are world class?
Yeah,
Gerrard, Juninho.
Seager.
Gazza. Owen.
Michael Owen. Yeah, I think I'll stick it
Ravanelli
them 3.
Earlier? No?
I don't know, maybe I did, but I think out the 2 I'll go for. Definitely those 3.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Peak of him was frightening, wasn't he? His pace.
Yeah, scary.
So I think you just touched on a little bit why you retired, injury. So how did you kind of deal with that initially after retirement, and go into what you're up to now? And
not great. I think, you know, 1 minute you're a footballer, next you're not. 1 minute you're somebody, next minute you're not somebody. And I think that's really hard to take. You know what I mean? I think you've got to have good people around you. You've got to have a big, strong mentality to see what the future holds, and have a vision of what you want to do. I didn't have that, I'll be honest. I think I had a real struggle mentally. I think there's other people who could have done more, if I'm perfectly honest. I think the PFA do a really good job, really good job. But until they get older, until they know that you're coming out of the game, how do they know that these things are happening? You know, I think I got pushed into that environment that I was probably 6 months of floating around, being depressed, not knowing what was happening, drinking too much than I should have been doing other things that I shouldn't have been doing, and then realising that you either sort your life out or you're not really going to have much of a future. And understanding now what the PFA works, PFA put some good things in place, advised me of things that was available to me, pushing me down the route of education, which I started football with zero education in terms of I saw myself as a footballer. I didn't really try at school, didn't really have any ambition of going down that route, but they pushed me into certain things. I've got 2 degrees now, which I'm super proud of, and having an understanding of work in education, director of football in a local club around the area. So I've made good of what I want to do in terms of what I was, but I needed good people around me. Got a good family around me, a good girlfriend behind me, who helps me and guides me in times of places that I need to be. I think there's a lot of people who leave football with certain problems and certain issues, and listen, it's not nice. You know what I mean? I've known like a lot of really good friend of mine, Chris Barker, end up committing suicide. And it's such a shame that a lot of footballers go down that route, and some days are darker than other days, and you see and hear things that
are nice, and you just got to try and have, like I say, have good people around you, and have good understanding that life's for living, and nobody can take away at that time as a footballer. People can think I'm the best footballer in the world or the worst footballer in the world. I don't care what people thought of me as a player, really. I think one thing that people will always say of me, I hope, that is I worked hard. I scored some important goals. Those who played with me will say that I was a good laugh. I was brilliant socially. I was always up to something. I was always trying to have fun. I was always trying to make the best of a bad situation. But I always knew where the line was, and I always worked hard in terms of trying to get everyone together and just be the best version of me that I can be. And I think that's what you're trying to instill now with your own kids, still now with your life. And life's for living, isn't it? You know, and my brother died a couple of years ago, and I think family-wise and trying to bring things together is just important, that you just understand that there's more to life than football. You know what I mean? Football, when people say it's life and death, it's really important, really, really important, but it's just a game. And it's just a moment in time. You know, like, listen, I'm director of football. We drew last night, 1-1. Disappointed last night, but today's another day, and today's the time to spend with your family and your loved ones and do nice things and go to nice places and just enjoy life, and that's what you do.
Seize the moment, don't you?
Yeah, of course you do, and I think that's the most important thing. And I think when you speak to people's families, and when I went to Chris's funeral and spoke to his brother and his family, it's just, you know what I mean. I wish I could just give that information back to people like that, because I think that's the most important part, that those who aren't here anymore, who made those choices, and you know what I mean, going through tough times, I wish you can just speak out a little bit more and just so they can told how nice the people they are, instead of probably hearing the negatives all the time. And you know what I mean, like, it is such a shame.
Do you think, obviously there's no doubt many factors, but as a fan looking in from the outside, obviously I got no idea, but obviously football players have, as you say earlier, high highs, low lows. It's either extreme, really, isn't it, I guess, as a footballer, and then when you retire, you're kind of in that middle ground of, I don't want to call it normal, but kind of transition. Nothing extreme going on, I suppose. And do you think you're out of the bubble, aren't you, so to speak? So is it
100%.
It's hard to maybe just live a sort of plateau, not plateau life, but you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I
totally agree. Listen, I think as a player, it's either, there's no middle ground, isn't it, when you're a footballer? It's either high or there's a low. You know, there's no middle ground. I think when you're, I hate using that word, that normal. When you're a normal person, but when you're not a footballer, there's no real extreme high anymore, because you've got no football. There's no low. Yeah. And I think you find as a footballer, I think you realise that there's certain, your routines change. You know what I mean? So I think as a footballer, you have to be addicted to football. You know what I mean? So you're addicted to something. So then and I think this is the problem that a lot of footballers have. They change the addiction to something else. So if that's drinking, if that's gambling, if that's drugs, if that's whatever that may be, you know what I mean? So you move on to something else. And it's having that understanding, having good people around you who can change your focus. You need your family, you need your kids, you need your job. You need to find a way to get over those kind of moments. And I think until people have an understanding of, people see this divide on this money thing, this money divide of, it's all right, he's just a footballer, he'll be all right. You know what I mean? That doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? Nobody knows what the ins and outs of football back in the day. You know, football now, the money, which, and good luck to them. You know what I mean? The money now in football is outrageous. You know what I mean? The money back years ago wasn't the kind of money. It's good money. You know what I mean? But there's other jobs which get paid just as much as footballers back in the day. So it's not about money. It's about the person. And you take football out of the person, they're a different person. Yeah. And until people understand that, you know what I mean? They see what that person is and how they value. You know what I mean? Because they are just a normal person behind, really. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well,
Cheers, Andy. And we're gonna. Yeah. Sorry, Andy.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So we're just gonna finish up with just 10 quick fire questions, just to finish up. Yeah. So Matt, do you want to go first with your question?
You did say light-hearted, but I'm going to start with quite a tough one, actually.
Oh, okay.
My bad. What was the best feeling scoring that playoff final winning goal, again your first cap and goal for England?
The noise at Millennium Stadium will never ever be repeated. You know, I've played in a few stadiums before in my life. The noise when Ravanelli scored at Wembley,
against Leicester. I wasn't in the squad that day, and that noise it scared me how loud a football stadium could be. The noise at the Millennium Stadium was far louder.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I've been in the Millennium Stadium when the roof's been on, and that was quite intimidating. But that noise that day was just outrageous. So it has to be that. It has to be Cardiff.
Okay.
Birds.
So if you were trapped on a desert island and you need to get off, but you had to bring one other footballer with you, who would it be and why?
Just because he's so much fun and I socialise with him quite a lot, it would be Hamilton Ricard, because we just got on so well in terms of like we probably wouldn't speak to each other. We just used to literally laugh at each other because he couldn't understand me and I couldn't understand him, but we had a good relationship that would always be in and around each other, driving each other everywhere, and it would just be in each other's pockets for a good couple of years. So yes, I'd just say Hamilton.
Okay,
cool. What's the best perk or freebie you've had in your career?
The best one, I had a gold card at McDonald's. So every time I went to McDonald's drive-through, I could order anything, just give the gold card, but I could only use it on one meal for myself. So if I had a few people in the car, I would just have to keep going round and using it again and going around and using it again. So it was a brilliant freebie. So we just used to have to go and just use it every time. Yeah, so
they were throwing them around, weren't they? During that time,
gold card.
Yeah, brilliant.
Still got it?
No. Wish you had him. I'd have to go for the kids.
Okay, the best or worst insult of a fan you've ever had?
Probably the Oldham one. We're getting a pie thrown at me that I've never, like, I've always had. You always have insults. You always have people saying things at you, but yeah, just it was probably my own fault, because as I scored, I've stood right in front of him. I put me right in front of a host of people, put my arms in the air, and I just put my arms in the air. It just smashed me in the side of the face. And at the time, I thought it was probably a coin or something, but when it was stinging and hurting, and I seen all the sauce and crust and everything on the floor, it was it was quite good. I say it's the best.
Brilliant.
I've tried to find him on social media, but I've never found him. Never found him.
You'll have to try and dig one out.
Yeah. Well, if anyone has seen it,
Yeah, I know. Let us know. Tag us in there. So if you could replay any game that you've played in, which match would that be?
Probably that game. Probably the 7-1. I think there's one of those games that I'd love to watch it over and over again, because it's you never got those highlights, because the highlights weren't ready available from certain games at certain times, and that one isn't, for whatever reason. I've got photos of the game. I've got like photo stills of moments of that game, but I've not got the highlights of the game or the goals of the game. So it's so frustrating, because the next year I've got the highlights of the Oldham game, but not that one.
Not the 7-1.
I'd love to play that game again and see if I did do as well as I thought, because in my head I think I was world class that day. But I probably could have done better, and I probably could have scored more than the 3, and maybe could have done better than the 7, which would have been quite surreal, really.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant.
I'm going to flip one out, because I think I know what your answer might be to that one. So I'm going to, off the cuff, go, what was your favourite pair of football boots in your career?
Favourite pair of football boots? I was always Nike Tempos, always like the old school ones. And when they changed the tongue, I hated them and wanted rid. You know what I mean? I always got an opportunity to be sponsored by Adidas, but I always turned them down because I always did Nike, and then my agent got me sponsored by Nike, so it was always Nike Tempos. Yeah, I always like Puma Kings because I like the tongue. I like the tongue on boots.
Yeah, I love Puma Kings.
I bought. Well, I didn't buy it. So when I was a kid, I had the Diodora of Van Basten's.
Okay.
Who were the black and orange and black and green.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was a Marco Van Basten fan after the volley he scored in the Euros. So I always wanted to try and emulate that. I never scored a goal like that in the boots, so I had to get rid of them. But no, Puma Kings. But only wore them for training, because I couldn't wear them for games because of my sponsorship with Nike. I'd always wear Tempos. But
so 5 days training Puma Kings.
5 days training, sometimes Puma Kings or Adidas Speciales or Mundials or something. But yeah, I'd always wear Nikes for my game. Yeah.
Nice.
The next one is what's the worst weather to play in and train in? Is it the northern cold or the Welsh rain?
No, it's sun for me. Like the heat. I remember we played at Goodison Park one Saturday, and it was the hottest day I've ever witnessed. The warm up, everything in the stadium there was no air. It was like I could imagine it playing a guitar. You know, it was just, I couldn't breathe. It was just horrible. Went in the changing room before the game, had a cold shower to try and cool down. There was just nothing there. You know, I had no energy to even start the game, and if I felt like that and tried to keep it low key, you know, that we ended up getting smashed, I think 5 or 6 that day as well. You know what I mean? It was just. I think I lost about 8, because we always used to get weighed before and after. I think I lost 8 or 9 pound in that one game, and it was scary thought in terms of Merseyside and like just a normal game. But yeah, you get used to living in the cold, playing in the cold here and living in the cold. Today's a summer day, believe it or not.
Decent day, yeah.
Today's a summer day today,
is,
and everyone, you'll probably see people walking around and they'll have coats and woolly jumpers and hats and stuff on. But no, today's a shorts and t-shirt day today.
Nice.
Okay, so my last one then is if you could change any rule, there's been quite a lot of rule changes recently, but if you could change one rule, what would it be?
Right now, I'd change in junior football kicking ins instead of throw-ins, but that's another one. In professional football, I'm just not a big fan of the. I'm just not a big fan of VAR. If I'm perfectly honest, I just don't. You know what I mean? It takes too long. I think there should be a rule implemented that there's a time frame. That a decision's got to be made in a time frame. If that's 30 seconds or 60 seconds or 45 seconds, whatever it may be, I'm not bothered. But just have a time frame in terms of this is a quick decision, because a referee's made a quick decision instantly. So if you've got stills or a camera, you can watch the same thing and make a decision in 30 seconds instead of having minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and just you keep picking injuries up. The game just dies. You've got that much injury time. I hate the amount of injury time. I mean, having 89 minutes on top of a game. There's a lot of games where the games are ruined in terms of late goals because the game's dragging out that long. There shouldn't be any more than 3-4 minutes injury time for subs and stuff. It shouldn't be because of VAR. So yeah, probably those two. Okay.
I think the last two questions then. So final one for me. If you're left with two people to room with, and those two people are Paul Merson and Paul Gascoigne, who are you picking out of those two?
I'm not sure I'd be sober with either. If I did. Probably Paul Gascoigne. Gazza's so much fun. Gazza was the life and soul of a party. He lived life to the full, still does. So yeah, we definitely Gazza.
Okay, then final question, Andy. Who is the GOAT?
Got to be Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Ronaldo's data and stats are unbelievable, but all-round technical ability and aura about him, how he handles himself on and off the pitch as a person, as a footballer, it has to be him for me.
Okay, yep. Brilliant. Great. Well, thanks, Andy. We really appreciate you coming on the show, and thank you. We want to just be respectful of your time, so we'll wrap the show up there. But thank you, everyone, for watching. And make sure, if you want to watch more episodes, you subscribe to the channel. If you enjoy today's content, drop a like. And if you want to get involved in the debates, drop a comment in the comment section. But that's it for this time, guys. Have a world-class weekend.